USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. What a terrific weekend it was last weekend as Northern Michigan swept the then number one team in the country.
And joining us now on this week's USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of Northern Michigan, that's Grant Potulny. And Grant, what a fantastic week to come off a two-game sweep at home against the number one team in the country, Minnesota Duluth. I can only imagine your building was rocking for two straight nights.
Yeah, it was a really fun environment. We've had great attendance. I'm sure, probably college hockey in general has felt like that because of the missed year last year. But Friday night was an incredible hockey game. There was only 3 penalties in the whole game, all in the first period. So there was about 50 minutes of uninterrupted, fast, physical, felt like a NCAA tournament type game. Really enjoyable hockey. And Saturday we jumped out a little bit to a lead, and I think the crowd, probably added to that a little bit, and even our announcer was getting into it. The band was great. It was a really fun weekend for our players, for our community, for our school. Everybody really enjoyed themselves.
That 2-game sweep extends now a 6-game unbeaten streak, 5-0-1 over the last 6. I know off the air we were talking about some injuries and getting some players back in health, but what have been some of the major changes over these last 6 games?
I think you could even go back further than that. We went to Mankato and at the end of October, maybe it was November, and got humbled. And from that point on, I think we're 8-1-1. But it was that I think it was understanding maybe where we are and where we want to get to. And sometimes those kind of things give coaches the opportunity to get their players' attention. And I think that for us was a case of that. And then to add on that, I think we have 10 seniors, we have 16 upperclassmen. And, you hear the word leadership a lot in athletics, whatever sport it is. You hear culture a lot. And sometimes those words are just buzzwords, but we have a guy, Joe Nardi, who's our captain. This is 3-year captain for us. This is his extra year. He's just became the all-time player and leader in games played. And he's everything you want in a player, whether he's a great student, he's great in the community. But in the locker room, when things aren't going well, obviously something needs to change. And typically the coaches are going to push harder and try to push guys outside their comfort zone. And as a player, you can do one of two things. You can either jump in the boat with the coaching staff and get to work, try bailing that water out of that thing, or you can go the other direction and can allow, a little bit of the negativity to creep in the locker room. And Joe jumped in with us, Ben Newhouse, some of the older guys, but especially Joe. And that's been for me personally, I think that's been the biggest change is, just them bringing it in practice every day. And it's allowed us to get better and us to push harder.
I want to talk about a couple of specific players. Hank Crone, I look at him, that's a kid that started out his career at BU, then went to Denver, and now in year 4, he's with your team, and I look at what he's doing production wise, and this is a kid that now seems to have broken out of his offensive shell at 27 points in 17 games. How does he fit into this team, and what has he been able to do to improve himself so much?
Well, I think, with Hank, it started this summer with Byron Poole, our associate head coach, had coached Hank in Fargo. So he knew the player, knew the person from a distance. I've always admired Hank as a good player, but I didn't know him as a person. So Byron thought he'd be a great fit for our team, which he is. And, we want players that that play with confidence, and we want to try to give them confidence. And we understand there's going to be turnovers in games and some of those things, but we want guys that play free, guys that have the puck on their hip at the blue line, and they want to make a play. And Hank fits that mold. And he has assimilated himself into our team incredibly. His skill set is, his puck skills and his passing ability are really high end. I wish he'd shoot a little bit more, but he plays with AJ Vanderbeck on the power play, and they kind of fit each other because AJ is a shooter and Hank's more of a distributor, and they played together 5-on-5. We got them split up now, but they really play well off each other. And Hank's been a great addition to our program.
You mentioned AJ Vanderbeck, and he's number 2 in the country in goals, 14 goals in 17 games. I mean, that matches his career high for a season. So he's another guy that's taken a step forward offensively. How fun is it to watch a player like that grow?
AJ is to start. He has the best release of any player I've ever coached at any level, anywhere, World Juniors, anything. And his ability to get a puck that is not in his wheelhouse off his stick around a defender is elite. Like, there's no other way around it. AJ had to grow the rest of his game a little bit so that he could be in those positions to get that puck more often. And now you're at a point where, when AJ has a shot at the net, you're almost expecting it to go in. And, very rarely do you feel like that as a coach, but his whole game has evolved. He has a great feel offensively for kind of when to find the quiet ice, and not in a cheating, lazy manner, but just in a good offensive brain manner. Okay, where am I going to be open? And from there, the way he can release it is really high end. So it's been fun to watch. His shot's always been there, but it's been fun to watch the rest of his game evolve. So now you can play him in more situations. Now he's on the ice more, and now he has put himself in that position to get that puck more often than he ever has up to this point.
We touched a little bit on the transfer portal. How did you approach it this past season, and how do you expect to look at transfers going forward?
Well, we have a fair amount of transfers, and for the most part, they've been really good additions for us. And, we're probably still going to get a look in the transfer portal, but like any team, whether it's pro sports, college hockey, the teams that develop, recruit, draft their own players and can get that cycle that you're not reliant upon who's coming into the portal. You're not relying upon, okay, somebody's in the portal, can we get them? That's where we're going to try to get to as a program, and then supplement from that transfer portal. But it's a tool for all of us to use. And, we're always going to keep our eyes on it and try to find the right people.
More with Grant Potulny in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from US College Hockey Online.
We're back on USCHO Spotlight with Northern Michigan head coach Grant Potulny. This is the first year of the reborn CCHA, and your old coach, Don Lucia, is the commissioner. How's the new league been so far?
Fantastic. The teams, I think, have represented themselves on the ice very well. But the production of the league, and whether that's through video, whether that's through some policies and procedures, has been outstanding. And, I think that Don, being a former coach, former player, he has a unique perspective on what is really important to the coaches, because that job's, you have, 3 different levels of people that you have to kind of, work with: presidents, athletic directors, and coaches. And Don's whole life, he's been in hockey and he's been in the trenches, and he understands what coaches are going through. And he understands, some things that maybe are important to us that, from the outside might not seem important, but Don understands those things. And he's done an incredible job, putting our league in a position where I think we're going to continue to grow each year.
It may seem obvious with some of the longer travel, not part of the league compared to the WCHA, but has that made a difference having that tighter footprint?
Yes. Yes, it has. And when you think about the travel to some of those places, really besides, I guess St. Thomas now or Minnesota State, the rest of us, it's pretty challenging to get on a couple different planes to get there. When we would go to Alaska, it was a 23-hour travel day. And, you leave Marquette at 6 a.m. and you're getting in Alaska. It's, about 1 o'clock by the time you get to your hotel, but there's a 4-hour time change. So, all of a sudden now you've been traveling for a long time to get out there, and that may affect your games in the upcoming days. But then coming home, now you've done that twice, and that affects your preparation for who you're playing next. So, I still think we will continue to schedule some games with some of the teams in Alaska, but scheduling them at more opportune times for how they fit within the structure of the rest of the schedule, versus, there was one year we went from Anchorage to Huntsville in the next weekend, and there was a 72-degree difference in temperature, not to mention all the travel. So, we definitely want to be good partners with the Alaska schools, Long Island, and all these teams that are growing, growing the game, but, doing it within the confines that, can help your program continue to grow.
Last season was the implementation of new overtime and shootout rules, although with the weirdness of the year, it probably didn't have the same impact as it's going to have this year. And there seems to be some rumbling around coaches and leagues that maybe this needs some adjustment. Do you have some thoughts on overtime and shootouts as it's played out so far this season?
Yeah, I think, go to an overtime, which this is the part that, and actually that we've had some donors and some fans and some people ask me, why we are where we are in the pairwise. And I think there's confusion with the fan base a little bit, where if you win a 3-on-3 overtime, it goes to a win on your record, but it's essentially a tie in the terms of the pairwise. So, I would like to see us either adopt the NHL model fully, and you get to 3-on-3 and it's a win or a loss, or go back to playing 5-on-5 for the 5 minutes, and then, go to the 3-on-3 or the shootout. But, I think, to be honest, I'd be okay with either one. It's just right now, I think there's some confusion with the fan base and fans in general on what's a win and then what's a tie and how all those things work out.
One follow-up on that. How does having the 3-on-3 overtime, how does that affect planning for games, practice? How do you fit in those 3-on-3 and 4-on-3 situations that you need to work on?
It's funny. Last year we worked on 3-on-3 all the time, and I felt like our record was under 500. This year we've not worked on it once, and we've won a couple times in overtime and gone to a shootout one other time. So I think you get your best offensive players on the rink, remind them that defensively you can't give people space. Human nature is, because there is so much rink, you want to back off. I think defensively, you just remind them, like, you have to be on your guy and you have to close quick. And that eliminates, the ability for some 2-on-1s. And then offensively, just let them be creative. That's kind of the approach we've taken.
Grant, before we let you go this weekend, we'll close out the first half, I guess you'd say, of the season, whether it's halfway or not. But, Lake Superior, a good opponent. That you don't have anything beyond this except probably some exams for the kids. How much, as a coach, you just have to get that message that you got to leave it all out on the ice to keep this streak going, keep playing well?
Yeah, no, it's an important weekend. There's no doubt. There's a lot of things on the line for the guys. I mean, we played them in the championship game last year. We play it for a trophy against them. So on top of, this being important games, there's a couple other things that are in play here. And, hopefully that guys honor those and, continue through this break with the momentum we're building.
Well, certainly it's been a nice ride here for the last few weeks for you, Grant. And we wish the best of luck to you, your program, the rest of the way. Hopefully we'll get to catch up with you again later in the season. But Grant Potulny, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it.
That's Northern Michigan's Grant Potulny. Jim, every coach we've talked to so far in the CCHA is thrilled with a new league.
Well, I think that certainly, a new administration has stepped up some of the key portions of what makes a league good in considered mediocre as opposed to great, and I think that the WCHA at times was good for, I think, the teams, but the 8 teams that are now in the CCHA, they seem to be, obviously in a better geographic footprint, but also getting really good leadership from Don Lucia and his whole staff. And I think that they understand that it's taken a step forward, whether it's the publicity or the social media presence of the league, it has certainly raised. And I get it. I understand what makes a good league better. And they seem to be getting it now in the CCHA.
We talked a little bit about transfers, and certainly Hank Crone has been a real good pickup for Northern Michigan. But it seems like Grant has expressed the approach a lot of teams are taking, where they want to build through recruiting and from within, but see what's available in the transfer portal, but not rely too much on transfers.
There's a couple of teams out there, with St. Thomas and LIU, that they, had to really rely heavily on the portal. You're building a program from scratch and you need players quickly. The portal was perfect for them, but for others, it's the ability to have an outlet if you have to fill a few holes, and wherever those holes may be, whether it's, a goal scorer, somebody to jump onto your top line, maybe you lost your goaltender, whatever it is, that, you can sometimes fill those holes. But I think the most important thing, and we've heard every coach that we talk to about the portal kind of say this, that it has to be the right fit. You have to have a player that can fit not just into your lineup, but into your locker room and your program, and do things the same way you want them done. And I think that is the biggest challenge every coach faces when they head into the transfer portal.
And based on our conversation with Grant Potulny today, and also with other coaches, I suspect there's going to be a lot of discussion about overtime and shootout come the off season.
I think the coaches convention in Florida this year will probably have days dedicated to it, because it whether it's the confusion of how points work, whether it's, the pairwise, whether it's, the fact that you could feel like you had a really good weekend and then come away with 1/3 of the available points out of it. You only get 2 out of 6 because, one of your wins came in overtime. And, I think coaches in general are understanding this system is not perfect. It's not even correct right now. So I think you're right. The discussion's already going on, and it won't have to wait for the off season. A lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of them are very vocal that they really dislike what's going on in 3-on-3 and shootouts. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, I'll be interested in watching Northern Michigan down the stretch. Certainly Minnesota State and Bemidji are in everybody's conversation for the top of the league, but let's not overlook Northern Michigan. They're going to be right there.
Tied for 3rd place right now, and they're finding ways to move up. They're, the fact that they're healthy, and you didn't hear Grant Potulny really, lean on the fact that his team was really banged up. But, there was a game this year that they only dressed 4 defensemen for. Imagine that. Like that's really difficult. So when you get healthy and you start playing your best hockey at the same time, that there's probably some sort of a correlation between the two. I think this team has caught fire right now. And as long as they can ride, I know they probably don't want this break after the Lake State series this weekend. Everybody kind of goes through it, but they're really on fire right now.
For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and that's it for USCHO Spotlight. We'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.